I'm sure we'll all sleep easier knowing you won't be sabotaging us anymore. That's how it started. No warning, no whisper of what was coming, just Brandon Fitzgerald's voice crackling through the all-hands Zoom call, smug and certain. My name is Richard Palmer, rich to most people. I'm 52 years old, and I'd spent the last 8 years building the backbone of this company's infrastructure. That morning in March, I became the guy who got fired in front of 200 people without even knowing it was coming. The company Slack exploded in real time. Peach emojis, stunned silence. One person sent a crying GIF. Effective immediately, Brandon continued. Richard Palmer is no longer with the company. Legal has issued an 18-month non-compete agreement. We appreciate his past contributions. Past contributions. Like I hadn't carried their entire back-end infrastructure for 8 years. Like I wasn't the one who stayed up until 3 a.m. last Christmas Eve when everything crashed, while Brandon posted ski photos from Aspen. Like I hadn't trained half the people on this call. And now he was erasing my name from the company wiki in front of everyone. My video feed stayed on. I didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at that camera with the blankest expression I could manage. My dad taught me that in '91, right before Desert Storm. Never let them see you react. I'm sorry, what? Someone typed in chat. Brandon didn't flinch. We take IP protection seriously. Richard understood that when he signed his employment contract. Leadership decisions. That was rich, coming from a 32-year-old who'd asked me how to unzip a tarred GZ file 2 months ago. I reached forward slowly, clicked leave meeting. The screen went gray. No goodbye, no final words. Just that quiet click. I stood up from my desk, walked to my garage. The air out there was cold, smelled like motor oil. My workbench sat in the corner, covered in parts from an old Dell server. Behind that server, tucked into a drawer I'd installed myself, was a USB drive. Black marker across the side, Redex Final V5. I picked it up, slipped it into my jacket pocket. Back at company HQ, Brandon posted a farewell message on Slack. Something sterile, probably written by Jessica Caldwell in HR. We thank Richard for his contributions and wish him all the best. No mention of the disaster recovery protocol I'd designed from scratch in 2019. No mention of the caching system I'd rebuilt over Thanksgiving weekend. No mention of how, without me, their whole operation ran like a three-legged dog. Over the next few days, my inbox filled up. Are you okay? Did you really sign a non-compete? What happened? I didn't answer any of them. The truth was, I hadn't agreed to anything yet. Legal said documents were coming. I hadn't seen the non-compete, but I knew it was coming, and I knew exactly how I was going to handle it. I opened my personal laptop and typed one line into an encrypted note file. If they wanted a war, they should have read the fine print. The courier showed up 2 days later. Manila envelope, signature line, prepaid return label. Inside, termination letter, NDA, and the most vicious 18-month non-compete I'd ever seen. I read it slowly. No employment with competitors, no consulting, no contribution to any product that resembles their offering. They really thought they'd buried me. I poured a glass of water, sat down at my kitchen table, and started making a list. On the left, every system I'd ever touched. On the right, every commit ID with my name on it. At the bottom, RPE, February 2017. The month before I'd even started at the company. The month I'd written that module on my own time, my own hardware. There are two kinds of people in tech. The ones who plan 2 weeks ahead, and the ones who plan a year ahead and never let on. Brandon thought I was the former. I slid the USB drive into my laptop and waited for it to boot up. Whatever he thought he'd won started dying the second I clicked out of that Zoom room. But there was more to it than professional pride. My wife Sarah was 6 months into chemo, stage 3. The insurance we had? Through the company. Cut off the day they fired me. No coverage. No continuation. Just gone. Our daughter Emma's college fund. Company stock options I'd been vesting for 8 years. Worthless now after the board shakeup last quarter when Brandon's uncle took over as chairman. Brandon didn't just fire me. He took my family's security. I sat at that kitchen table for 3 hours making lists, checking dates, pulling up old files. Sarah came down around midnight, saw me still sitting there. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just figuring some things out." She nodded. Didn't push. That's Sarah. 30 years married, she knows when I need space to think. Don't stay up too late, she said. I didn't answer. Just kept working. By 2 a.m. I had a plan. The state unemployment website crashed twice before it finally let me file the claim. It was almost 3 in the morning. I sat at my kitchen table, clicking through government forms with the mechanical numbness of someone who'd been staring into the void too long. I hit submit. Spinning wheel. Gray text. Claim pending. Employer response required. 3 days later, denied. Reason. Termination for cause. Ineligible for benefits. Filed by HR Representative Jessica Caldwell. I let out a joyless laugh. Of course it was Jessica. I clicked through the PDF. Their claim said violation of internal compliance protocols and willful disregard for leadership directives. Translation: I told Brandon his feature request would cause a security breach, and he didn't like hearing it. My phone buzzed. A notification from the company's admin panel auto-forwarded to my personal email. They must have forgotten about that old oversight. Subject: User R. Palmer. Access revoked. The list was long. Confluence, Jira, GitLab, Slack, Google Workspace. My email bounced now. Even the team wiki I'd built from scratch had my name stripped out. I clicked on a commit I'd authored back in 2019. Access denied. Then came the real knife. An internal message sent to the engineering team. Someone sympathetic forwarded it to me. Please note, Richard Palmer did not contribute directly to current platform infrastructure. Any perceived ownership is misattributed. Do not engage further. I stared at that sentence. Did not contribute directly. 8 years of architecture meetings, 3 complete platform rewrites, hundreds of midnight deployments, and now, in the eyes of the company, I'd been digitally erased. I closed the laptop, sat there in the dark for a full hour, didn't move, just thinking. Then I did something that surprised even me. I opened an old spiral notebook and wrote 3 words. Make them prove it. I started pulling records. Not company files, they'd scrubbed most of those, but personal backups, local commits, email receipts, architecture diagrams I'd exported before meetings, saved on my own hardware. I dug through old folders, found screenshots, even found sticky notes with sequence diagrams I'd sketched out years ago. I had the USB drive too. I didn't plug it in yet. Not yet. That was for later. I downloaded my entire GitHub archive, backed up my personal Notion pages, reconstructed the original database schema from memory. It was all there. Just enough. Not too much. But enough. The law office was on the east side of town. Modest building, no-nonsense signage. The receptionist looked like she'd heard 10,000 stories just like mine. Richard Palmer? Yeah. Mr. Benson, we'll see you now. Howard Benson was late 50s, wore jeans with his blazer. He flipped through my packet for 15 minutes, nodding occasionally, grunting here and there. Then he leaned back in his chair. First off, they were scared of you. That's what this is. He tapped the non-compete with his pen. This isn't standard. This is overkill. They think you're going to start your own company tomorrow and eat them alive. I didn't answer. He studied my face, gave a small snort. Should I be worried? Don't know yet. He nodded like he respected that. Unfortunately, he sighed. Under current state law, this thing holds up. Barely. They'll argue you had strategic influence, privileged access, all that. Judge will probably lean their way. I looked down. But, he added, there's legislation that just passed. Doesn't go into effect until January 1st next year. And once it does, these clauses won't be enforceable against tech workers anymore. I looked up sharply. Wait, seriously? Dead serious. But you need to keep your nose clean until then. No paper trail, no leaks, no violations. You cross the line even once, they'll have you in court before you can blink. I nodded slowly. And if I don't cross the line? He leaned forward. Then on January 1st, they've got nothing. My fingers curled around the strap of my bag. Thanks, I said quietly. That's all I needed to know. That night, I packed a duffel bag, 2 changes of clothes, toothbrush, the old ThinkPad, USB drive in my jacket pocket, that spiral notebook, now thick with diagrams and timelines. I left a note for Sarah. Gone a few days, back soon. Love you. No GPS, no social media, just me and the road. I crossed the state border at 1:12 a.m. I wasn't running. I was meeting someone off the record. Someone who owed me a favor and had a quiet office with no sign on the door. I didn't look back once. I'd already seen everything I needed to see. I deleted my LinkedIn at 3:07 a.m. No status update, no long goodbye, just a click, a password, silence. The page vanished. My GitHub followed. Repos set to private, profile photo scrubbed, bio blanked, no fanfare, no breadcrumbs. By the time people started talking about me, they were using past tense. Did you hear what happened to Rich? I think he left tech. Probably just burnout. Brandon ate it up. Even bragged to a couple board members that the threat was neutralized. That's what he called me. A threat. What nobody knew was that 412 miles away, in a quiet industrial park behind a vape shop and a gym that never seemed open, something was beginning to stir. It started with an LLC. Boring name. No Twitter, no funding announcements. Just a clean registration filed in a tech-friendly state. The name on the documents wasn't Richard Palmer. It was Russell Holt, a name I'd used once in college to sign up for a cybersecurity forum. Now it was my legal alias for business purposes, complete with a new EIN, a burner phone, and a P.O. box. Russell Holt didn't post on social media, didn't write medium think pieces. He just built. Quietly. Well, it wasn't a solo act either. 2 names on the payroll, Neil Porter and Andy Walsh, both mid-40s. Both guys I'd worked with years ago, back when the company still cared about quality over quarterly growth. When I first reached out, they thought I was dead. Hey, it's Rich. Can't explain everything. I need your help. Neil texted back before he even finished reading the NDA, I'm in. Andy didn't even hesitate. Just signed and sent back a thumbs up emoji. The rules were strict. No real names on commits, no metadata trails, no social media, no repo tracebacks. All commits done through rotated VPNs. And most importantly, no code resembling anything we'd built at the old company. Not yet, anyway. We didn't need to copy anything. I had the blueprints in my head, the mistakes they'd made, the infrastructure they'd ignored, the features users begged for and never got. I wasn't building their product, I was building the version they should have made from the start. Leaner, faster, modular. Their whole system was duct-taped together around enterprise contracts and Brandon's ego. Hours glided. Every night we pushed new commits to encrypted containers. Every morning we reviewed changes on a custom dashboard hosted on a cheap VPS. It was duct tape and hope, but it worked. And the best part, nobody saw it coming. Until one day, a whisper floated back into the old company's Slack. Hey, anyone heard of this new tool, Archive? Some startup out of Vermont or something. Looks like they're building a platform that does what we do. But better. The thread went quiet. Then someone posted a link, just a landing page. Minimalist, no pricing, no team bios, just a sleek tagline in black on white. We believe software should work. No mention of me, no fingerprints, just clean HTML and a sign-up box. The name alone was enough to plant doubt. Archive, the same code name I'd used years ago in a joke repo. Buried, private, forgotten. Except now it was real. Probably a coincidence, someone said. Yeah, still. Timing's weird, right? They let the conversation die. Nobody wanted to poke it. But Brandon noticed. He pretended not to, but he did. He bookmarked the site, checked it every few days, still blank, still no updates, still that same line. And far away, I sat in a dusty office with no heat, sipping gas station coffee, reviewing a pull request from Andy about improving API latency by shaving 120 milliseconds off handshake time. I smiled. We weren't building hype. We were building fear. It started with a refund request, then 2, then 17. By the end of May, 17 enterprise clients had filed complaints, API inconsistencies, system outages, data exports failing silently, scheduled reports sending blank PDFs at midnight. One Fortune 500 company reported a phantom user creating billing profiles under defunct accounts. Their customer success team spiraled into chaos. Brandon brushed it off. It's churn season. Procurement reshuffles. Happens every year. He told the product team to patch faster. When engineering leads raised alarms about legacy code I'd built, maintained, and warned them would implode if mishandled, he waved them off. They'll be back. They always come back. He said this while polishing a slide deck for a new funding round. He didn't notice that 2 of their top clients had quietly onboarded with a startup nobody had heard of before. A startup that didn't advertise, didn't pitch at conferences, didn't exist on Crunchbase. Just a name, floating in inboxes and Discord servers across mid-level tech teams. Then, on a foggy Thursday in June at 2 a.m., a Medium post went live. Title: The Emperor Has No Redundancy, a cautionary tale in mismanaged infrastructure. Author: Basilisk Dev. It was brutal, surgical, not angry, precise. The post walked through the architecture of a large B2B platform, uncannily similar to my old company's. It highlighted a dependency chain that collapsed between two services that hadn't been updated since 2018. It dissected a caching pattern that led to silent data corruption under load. It even referenced an internal system called Falcon Bridge, a name that had only appeared in internal Slack threads and one drunken offsite where I'd coined it as a joke. Only 3 people had ever referred to it publicly, and one of them was gone. "Who the hell is Basilisk Dev?" someone whispered in Slack. "Doesn't matter, this is bad." The post spread fast. CTOs forwarded it to their CIOs. Procurement managers quoted it in emails demanding status updates. Industry group chats lit up. Brandon stayed smug. "This is just noise. Our pipeline is strong." He said this while support tickets doubled. I read the article from a cracked phone in a bar off I-91, the kind of place with sticky booths and a jukebox that only played sad country. I'd just finished a code review. Neil had found a more efficient way to handle client-side encryption that cut load times in half. I sat alone in the corner, nursing a bourbon, and reread the Medium piece. I didn't smile. Didn't need to. I just sipped slowly, watching the article climb Hacker News. Nobody would link it to me. Not unless they remembered the joke, and they didn't. I was the ghost now. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring twice before answering. "Yeah?" A familiar voice. One of my quiet contacts. The one with connections at the State House. He didn't waste time. It passed. Just now. 38 to 12. Governor already said he's signing it. I held my breath. Goes into effect January 1st. Non-competes are done. At least for tech workers. You're in the clear. Just a few more months. The line went quiet. Then, you knew, didn't you? I exhaled slowly. "I hoped," I said. He laughed once, dry and low. "Then I guess they're screwed." I hung up. Outside, the first snow began to fall. There was a moment, somewhere between the 4th straight night of code refactoring and the 28th review of legal language, when Howard called me. "Rich, this isn't just a product anymore. It's a loaded gun, and you're pointing it right at them." He was right. We'd started with a skeleton. The same architectural principles I'd pitched in conference rooms filled with execs more interested in branding colors than data integrity. But this time, I wasn't asking anyone's permission. No decks, no stand-ups, no circular discussions. Just code. Clean, fast, mine. The product didn't even have a public name yet. Internally, we still called it Archive, though that wouldn't last. But it was ready, built from the ground up with a modular structure. It didn't mimic any of the old company's proprietary frameworks, but it outperformed them in almost every way. Session load handling, request latency, API modularity, failover redundancy. Everywhere their system sagged, ours glided. No bloat, no corporate theater, just precision. Andy handled the front end, light and fast, with an accessibility focus I'd always wanted but never got buy-in for. Neil rewrote the middleware using a custom pipeline we'd drafted on a bar napkin 6 weeks earlier, and I kept the back end tight. Data integrity, versioning, redundancy, my domain, my language. By the first week of November, the system passed every internal stress test. We simulated 20,000 concurrent users with no degradation. Neil actually teared up on our Zoom call. The next morning I met with Howard. It was time. We'd been quietly preparing the legal package for months. Timestamps, Git logs, Slack exports, witness statements from ex-employees who still owed me loyalty, and I had IP that predated my employment contract. Small tools, modules, functions I'd written on my own hardware before I ever signed anything with the company. I'd flagged the usage of those components inside the production system over a year ago, back in early 2023. Brandon had dismissed my concerns. "You overestimate your importance," he'd said. I hadn't forgotten. Now, Howard's team drafted an IP infringement claim, one with teeth. It called out a very specific pre-employment library I'd developed and maintained privately in February 2017, which had been absorbed into the company's proprietary analytics module shortly after I joined in March 2017. I'd warned them. They'd used it anyway. They didn't own it. And now they'd built half their flagship product around it. By the time the legal packet was printed, indexed, and sealed for delivery, I'd already taken the next step. I brokered a deal. The target, a mid-sized competitor. A company with funding, vision, and a deep hatred for the bloated monopoly Brandon commanded. Their CEO took the meeting instantly. No pitch deck, no small talk, just a private demo and one line. If you want to own the next version of this industry, I'm handing you the keys. He watched, listened, nodded slowly, then asked the only question that mattered. When can we launch? I smiled. January 3rd, right when the non-compete law dies, he grinned. We signed within a week. The licensing agreement was airtight, white label rights, full rollout clearance, exclusive use in 3 verticals, and a kill switch clause I retained, just in case anyone got cute. Meanwhile, my old company was busy lighting its own house on fire. Brandon announced a new funding round. Desperation disguised as confidence. Went on TechCrunch babbling about unprecedented growth and next-gen solutions, even as engineers quietly jumped ship and client churn ballooned. He gave interviews, threw buzzwords around, posted shirtless hiking photos on Instagram with captions like "Building the Future, one summit at a time." But behind the curtain, panic was setting in. A product lead leaked to me through Neil. They'd lost another enterprise account. The support team was drowning. Internal ticket volume had tripled. The DevOps lead walked out mid-sprint. And they didn't even know yet that I owned the legal equivalent of a detonator. But they would. Soon. I wasn't just finishing code anymore. I was drawing lines in the sand. Every decision had weight now. Every clause in the licensing contract, every version control tag, every Git log signature. It all mattered. This wasn't a passion project, it was a chessboard. And I was moving with purpose. We ran one last internal demo the night before Thanksgiving. Just the 3 of us on Zoom, faces pixelated, voices ragged from too many late nights. When the test completed, 0.8 milliseconds faster than our last benchmark, nobody cheered. We just exhaled. It was done. I muted myself, turned off the camera, and leaned back in the dark. A year ago, I'd walked out of that Zoom call. Humiliated. Hollow. Now I held a product my old company couldn't compete with, and a contract that would launch the day the law shackling me dissolved. I whispered to no one. You should have buried me deeper. Then I clicked deploy. The letter landed on Brandon's desk on a Tuesday morning in early December. Cream envelope, embossed seal, no drama, just 5 quiet pages, calm, brutal, airtight. Subject: immediate cease and desist. Unauthorized use of proprietary software components. From Benson & Rowe, LLP. To Brandon Fitzgerald, Chief Technology Officer. The opening paragraph was surgical, respectful even. It cited specific modules, pre-employment timestamps, dependency graphs. One line in particular, component originally authored and registered under Richard Edward Palmer, February 2017, was underlined in blue ink, hand-initialed. At first, Brandon laughed, right there in the middle of the office. "Is this a joke?" he barked, waving the letter around. "He's not even in the industry anymore. We destroyed his career." Someone Googled the law firm. They probably specialize in dog bite cases. But the laughter didn't spread. The product manager who'd replaced me looked pale. She recognized the module in question. It sat at the heart of their user analytics pipeline, the same one they'd scaled hastily during Q2 without a full review. 2 engineers had quietly raised flags about legacy code there weeks ago. One even asked, "Hey, wasn't this Rich's?" He'd been told to focus on forward momentum. Now legal huddled in the glass conference room. Brandon paced outside, still smirking. 5 minutes. 10. The door opened. The head of legal stepped out, holding the letter carefully. "You said this was standard." "It is," Brandon said. She didn't blink. "Then why is this module still in production?" He started to answer. Stopped. She lowered her voice. "You didn't scrub his code. I mean, we refactored. Not enough. Not this piece." She turned the page. "Look, There it was, clear as day, a git commit ID signed with my old GPG key. Feature module predating my contract by 1 month. Integrated post-hire, but never reassigned. The company had no IP claim to it. Worse, it was foundational. You couldn't untangle it without pulling the whole product apart. Brandon's throat went dry. Could we buy him out? Not with that license clause. He owns it, period. He didn't speak for a long moment. Then he grabbed his phone and dialed the number he hadn't touched in 9 months. Disconnected. No voicemail. He texted, "Rich, let's talk. Please." Message failed. He tried again. Same result. His face went tight. Then came the call from legal. He's filed for a temporary injunction. Judge is reviewing. Expect a hearing date within the week. Brandon swore and slammed his office door so hard the HVAC vent rattled. 100 miles away, I sat outside a quiet cafe overlooking a half-frozen river. Black coffee in one hand, rook in the other. I moved the piece gently, stared at the board. Across from me, Neil watched my phone light up. 3 missed calls, 2 texts, all from Brandon's number. I didn't look up. "Let him sweat," I said. Neil chuckled, then opened his laptop. Update from Howard. Judge set the hearing for January 15th. They're rushing, but it's after the law takes effect. I finally looked up. My eyes were steady. Calm. Good. The wind rolled past, cold and dry. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked. A kid yelled something about hot chocolate. I moved my queen. Took Neil's bishop. Leaned back. "Your move." He stared at the board and laughed. "You planned this far ahead?" I didn't answer. I just sipped my coffee, eyes on the board. Across the chess squares, the game was already over. He just hadn't realized it yet. Just like Brandon. At first, it was just whispers. A Slack thread quietly renamed from Hack Product Insights to Project Phoenix, as if a new name could fix the rot. Engineers were told to drop everything and start refactoring legacy modules. No specifics, no timelines, just panic disguised as urgency. Brandon called it a strategic rewrite. The team knew what it was, code triage. Within 48 hours, the engineering org resembled a battlefield. Pull requests collided. One senior dev rage quit after being told to remove my patterns with no guidance on how to replace them. In the background, Slack DMs churned. Who still has access to those original commits? I thought we deleted the backups. Git is forever. He's citing stuff from 2017. Brandon started hosting daily stand-ups, called them war rooms. Nobody laughed. He barked orders, demanded timelines, insisted they could rebuild the system without any of my fingerprints. But the truth was simple. I was the system. You couldn't rewrite me out, not without amputating every limb. Then the deposition requests started arriving. Email, certified mail, process servers at home addresses. Howard's legal team was relentless, calm, polite, vicious. Every document came with exhibits, Slack transcripts, wiki pages, deployment logs using my proprietary framework. The case wasn't just strong, it was damning. And still, I said nothing. No tweets, no leaks, no press, just silence. At HQ, engineers began sending resumes to recruiters. The VP of product quietly updated his LinkedIn at 2 a.m. Then someone leaked a memo, short, unsigned. Subject: what if this was his plan all along? He didn't fight the non-compete, just left, vanished. Then 9 months later, he reemerges with a product that mirrors ours but better, with legal claims that predate his employment. What if he knew we'd do this? What if he let us bury ourselves? An engineer added a comment, like he was playing chess and we brought Uno cards. Brandon saw the leak. He flipped, called an emergency meeting, accused the team of disloyalty, but the damage was done. They didn't believe in him anymore. They believed in me. I sat in a small conference room with Howard and his team, flipping through deposition packets. One of the junior attorneys blinked. "You really documented all this? Years ago?" I didn't look up. Measure twice, cut once. He swallowed. "What happens next?" I smiled faintly. "Next, we let them keep digging." Outside, a court clerk posted the hearing agenda. Case number 23 CV 1987. Motion hearing scheduled January 15th, 10 a.m. Subject: Palmer v. Redacted Tech Corp. Injunction and Ownership Claim. The courtroom was cold, January sun coming through cheap blinds that didn't close right. I sat at the plaintiff's table in a charcoal blazer, gaze fixed ahead, face blank. Across from me, Brandon sat next to his lawyer. His suit was too new, his tie too tight. His knee bounced beneath the table. His lawyer stood up first, gray-haired, polished. "Your Honor," he began, "Mr. Palmer knowingly signed an 18-month non-compete agreement upon his termination. Despite this, he has launched a product that directly competes with our client's platform." He smiled like he'd already won. The judge nodded. "Continue. We are requesting a permanent injunction against Mr. Palmer's product and immediate disclosure of his collaborators. In short, Your Honor, he is in material breach." I didn't move. Howard rose slowly. "Your Honor, that clause is no longer enforceable." Brandon's lawyer scoffed. Howard continued, calm. "Per State Labor Code Amendment 74B, which took effect January 1st, 2 weeks ago, non-compete clauses for software professionals in this state are void." He slid a single-page printout toward the judge, highlighted in blue ink. The judge adjusted his glasses. Read aloud. "A contractual provision that restricts a software professional's ability to work in a similar role shall be considered void as against public policy." Silence. Brandon's lawyer leaned forward. "Read it again." Slower. His face shifted, eyebrows drawing inward, jaw tightening. The judge looked up. "So, Mr. Palmer was never in breach." Howard nodded. "Correct, Your Honor." The judge set the page down. "The statute is clear. Unless the defense can present a compelling argument otherwise, which seems unlikely, he was never in breach." I inhaled once, slow, controlled. Brandon's lawyer whispered frantically to Brandon. Brandon leaned in, voice barely audible but caught by the court mic. "What's happening?" The lawyer turned, lips tight. He knew the law would flip the whole time. I didn't flinch, didn't smirk, didn't blink. The ruling came just before noon. The judge's decision was crisp, no grandstanding, just the clean crack of the gavel. The court finds that the plaintiff retains ownership of the original intellectual property in question, and the defendant must obtain a licensing agreement for continued use, effective retroactively. Brandon didn't stand, didn't move. They'd built their castle on my foundation, and now the foundation had a price tag. The ruling hit. The news within the hour. Engineer wins landmark IP case non-compete. Overturned by New Law Tech. Giant owes millions after failing to scrub ex-employee code. Investors pulled funding within days. The Series C round collapsed. Contracts were paused. The old company issued a statement about respecting the legal process and amicable licensing discussions. I read it while eating breakfast in my new office. Steel beams, high ceilings, fresh paint. A glass wall with my name in black text on clean acrylic. My team was small. Neil, Andy, a data analyst, a UX designer who used to work for NASA. All handpicked, all loyal. They just worked. On my desk sat one item that didn't match the decor. A small battered USB drive. Black Sharpie, Redex Final V5. I picked it up, turned it over. Same thumb drive I'd pocketed the day they fired me. I hadn't plugged it in once. I didn't need to. Everything I'd built wasn't on that drive. It was inside me. The licensing agreement was finalized that afternoon. $8.5 million backdated. $47,000 monthly royalties indexed to platform usage. If they refused, I had the injunctions ready. They didn't refuse. Brandon didn't call. Didn't show. A junior legal assistant handled the signatures. My bank account pinged as the first payment landed. I forwarded the notification to Howard. "Thank you. Drinks on me." By sunset, the office windows glowed gold. My team buzzed in the bullpen, music low, code flowing. I stepped out onto the balcony alone, looked out over the city. Vindication wasn't loud. It didn't come with applause. It came with ownership of my time, my mind, my name. I didn't burn their house down. I let them keep it, on my terms. And now every time they opened their product, every click, every metric, they paid me. That's not revenge, that's revenue. Sarah called as I was locking up. "How'd it go?" she asked. "Good," I said. "Real good." "You coming home?" "Yeah, I'm coming home." I hung up, pocketed my phone, turned off the lights. The USB drive went back in my desk drawer. I didn't need it anymore. I walked out into the January cold, breath visible in the night air. Somewhere across town, Brandon was probably still sitting in that office trying to figure out where it all went wrong. I knew exactly where. The second he underestimated a 52-year-old engineer who'd spent 30 years learning one simple truth. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast, and patience always wins.